Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Kalayim, Pei Gimel Halacha Aleph. We're going to be learning today Daf Chaf Hey, and we left off on Daf Chaf Hey Amud Aleph, all the way on top of the Amud. We began in the Gemara quoting a pasuk in Yeshayahu that is being used as the source for the first din in the Mishnah, that when you have a patch of vegetables that has the size of 6 by 6 tfachim, you can only plant in it 5 species and not more. Taka 5, but not more than 5. Now, the way we could learn the beginning of the sugya, that the words of the pasuk that we're focusing on is ukigana zeiru eha satzmiach, literally meaning like a garden causes its seeds in plural to sprout. Zeiru eha, the minimum of plural is 2. So the Gemara says, what are you kidding? You're bringing me a pasuk. From that pasuk, all you see is that you can plant 2. How do you get 5 from this plural expression of zeiru eha? And we're going to have a total of 3 ways of understanding it today. That will be Daf Chafei. Most of Daf Chafei will be expounding that pasuk. Way number 1, option number 1, is going to be that you're right, that the pasuk in Yeshayahu explicitly is only allowing for plural, zeiru eha. However, misvara, logically, same reason why 2 is allowed, and it doesn't create a problem of kilei zerayim. We come from the explicit 2 to a logical conclusion of 5. That will be way number 1. Second approach will be is that this pasuk explicitly, by using the word zeiru eha, is speaking about 5 species, and actually, in the second understanding of zeiru eha, will then introduce Shitas Rabbi Yehuda, which we learned yesterday in the Mishnah, that holds that you can have in a patch of 6 by 6, 6 types, also from the same pasuk. And then there's going to be a third approach that's going to be tweaked, that's going to be connected to ultimately a rare machloikis as to how the word zeiru eha is spelled, as we will see, whether it's spelled with 5 letters or whether it's spelled with 6 letters, not machloikis kriying ksiv, but an actual machloikis, how the pasuk itself is spelled in nach. These will be the 3 approaches, and as we did yesterday, we're going to learn the Gemara both first according to the Shita of the Rash. The Rash is Rab Shimon ben Avram, a Bali Toisvis that wrote a Peirush on Mishnayos. And the Kuda will be is that the Rash does not allow for us to use the heter of Rosh Toiv when we're dealing with a vegetable patch that is as small as the one that we are discussing, because the goal ultimately is that there should not be a maras ayin of a mingling, and the smaller the patch and the more the species, you already have the disadvantage that it looks like it's all farnished. So therefore, he does not allow Rosh Toiv. We're going to learn every shtickle of the Gemara when necessary in a different way. We have enough time for this. L'shita Sarambam, that Dafka, yes, allows the leniency of Rosh Toiv to be used, even though the patch is as little as the 6 by 6. That will be the bulk of today's daf. And then at the end of Daf Chafei Amud Beis, the Gemara is going to introduce a machlekes between Rabbi Yochanan and Eish Lakish, and that is that lit Rabbi Yochanan, and that again there's going to be the initial understanding of the machlekes and then the conclusion of the machlekes, the conclusion of the understanding. That lit Rabbi Yochanan, the limit of 5 is only in the patch itself, 5 species, and therefore, if a person were to want to plant also immediately outside the patch of 6 by 6 more vegetables, without the border case of the Mishnah, without a border. So you have a 6 by 6 and you decide, I want to go beyond it by making it into an 8 by 8, because when you are planting in a little box of a tefach by a tefach, when you add a tefach of one side of the 6 by 6, that's 7. And then on the other side, you have an 8. Let Rabbi Yochanan, you can pack in 9. And let Eish Lakish, you still only can have the 5 and not more, even though you are moving some of your veggies chutz l'shisha, outside the square of the 6 by 6. All of this can sound, just to hear the words, we're going to look at the pictures and we're going to chop it. The Gemara is going to ultimately explain that the machlokes that we just quoted, the words between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, is not bidiyuk the way it sounded, and yes, it's linked to a machlokes that we have in Bavli Shabbos Daf Pehei Omid Beis between Rav and Shmuel, as we'll speak out, and that will be the machlokes here between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. At Khan, the words of introduction. Again, we strongly suggest for those who are learning to get a sefer that has, whether you're using the Oizvahadit, whether you're using the art scroll, maybe by now you have more Sfarim, that and even Lemdei HaRambam, we did not have all these cases in the Rambam, Bachlal. So a big, there's a special excitement that we're learning the Torah Chadash, we're learning something new. And with the pictures, it's extremely easy to learn it. If you want to read the whole pasuk, you can go to Daf Chav Dalud Amid Beis, and you can look at the Torah Oir HaSholem, and the pasuk is Ki Ka'aretz Troitzit Simcha Uchegano Zeiru Ehos Atzmiach Kein Hashem Elikim Yatzmiach Tzedako Sihila Neged Kol Hagoy. But the focus now will be on the word Zeiru Eha. Zeiru Eha Lashon Haba means two, not more than two. But yet, this is the source that you can have five. How do you get to that? So what we will call now approach number one, that Zeiru Eha explicitly only means two. You're right. Elama, logically, the same logic that is behind the allowance of two will ultimately allow you to hit five. Beginning with the Rashi Ilio, and then we'll learn it again in Rambam. Amar Rab Shmuel bar Sisarto. That Mishnayim atlamed arba'am. No, the logic doesn't go from 2 to 5. The logic behind 2 will allow you to go to 4. How does that work? So look inside diagram A. The emphasis, even if you can zoom out, really, if you would only to plan 2, you can use the format of diagram B, just to make that clear. In other words, what we are looking for is the Havamina Damaskana. The Havamina might have been that even though, yes, we know that there was some sort of tefach and a half, according to the Rash, according to the Tanakama, a tefach and a half space is needed. One might have thought that if the whole patch to begin with is only 6 by 6, even leaving a tefach and a half is not enough in diagram B. And maybe, in other words, the beginning would be, if you're planting such a small patch for things not to look taroivis, mingled, you only have to plant, you can only plant one species. No, the pasuk says, Zeiru Eha. And we already understand that these patches, which by standard are 6 by 6 tfachim, that even in the 6 by 6 standard, you can have 2. Why can you have 2? Because we do allow for the tefach and a half space to create enough of a separation that it will not appear mingled. Now, when you do a tefach and a half space, just like Vada, you can make a diagram B. Why not do diagram A? Why are we making a diagram A? Because now go to diagram C. Because if you put the 2 in the format of diagram A, and the same logic, which, like we said, that you are allowed to leave a tefach and a half, and that covers the issue of the appearance of mixture. So you can put in a 4. Look inside diagram C. Let's read now the words. When you're looking at diagram C, we'll read inside the words in the Gemara. Just like when you put the 2 in diagram A, you don't have to do it like diagram B. You can do it like diagram A. You can make not only the space of 1.5 between the top and the bottom, but you don't have to lay it out. You don't have to pack up the whole area. You can continuously narrow the area. If you continuously narrow the area, no, leave diagram C, Kevin. We already looked at diagram A. So then you can put in there another 2 patches, a total of 4. So then af arba'a at noisen batchila shisho meitzar v'hoylach. In other words, again, this concept that the pasuk explicitly only mentions plural. Plural is 2. But logically, if we allow the 1.5, you can put in 4. And if you look in diagram C, you have, no matter which angle you're looking at, without using Reish Shtoim, there isn't 1 ounce of a vegetable planted within 1.4 from the other. It's all 1.5. Really, the real cheshbon, the way he made a layout, the diyuk, you actually have 1.54 in one of the directions. Nach besser. You have all the space you need. Now, when you put it as you did in diagram C, and all we need is a tefach and a half. There is the 1 little circle in the middle that if you were to put 1 stalk of vegetable even if it is from another species, from a fifth species, you again have a 1.5. And why would it not be allowed? And right? No, don't tell me that there isn't space for a fifth species. There is. You're right. It's only a neck of echad, but the neck of echad, the little circle inside diagram C, also has the 1.5. No matter which one of the 4 surrounding patches you are looking at, many patches or many species, you have here a fifth option. Okay, so that's approach number 1. Now we're going to have to do the whole thing again. L'shita Sarambam. L'shita Sarambam, Kevin, if you can bring up, I'll say it by heart. This is so geschmack. If you can bring up diagram D and E, only D and E, we're going to get to F soon. F will leave soon. So very good. So Koydem Kol, same idea. That this is Rabbi Shmuel Bar Sisarato. L'Rambam in Perush HaMishnayos, you can even allow the base, the Rosh Toir. And that's why, again, a chiddush. Without the pasuk Zeiru Ehal, we would have thought that maybe in a 6x6, you can only plant 1 species. No, you can plant 2. Once you can plant 2, we can follow the rules that we learned in the previous chapter, which includes Rosh Toir. So how would you put out the 2? Look inside diagram D. You can put 2. And that's explicit. The 2 layout, L'Rambam, will be as in diagram D, which is, I'm not saying even that you're planting more than you did in diagram B. I'm not even complaining it to the Rash. I just want to point out that you can make a layout in which you have a Rosh Toir. But here there's a problem. The problem is like this. Look inside now diagram E. For you to jump, the Gemara didn't go from 2 to 5, right? The Gemara went from 2 to 4 to 5. From you to go to 2 to 4 here, the Rambam cannot do. Why not? The Rambam himself says. And this is a chiddush that we never learned before. Look inside diagram E. The way you would think you can go from 2 to 4 is by putting 4 different species. Again, using Rosh Toir, allowing all of them to touch at their points, but it's 4 different types coming from different angles, it would be permitted. This will not be permitted. And this is a new thing that we didn't learn until now. Well, every day there's no chidush. Even L'Rambam and Bechlal, by Rosh Toir, when you only have 2 patches, we already learned in the previous chapter that Rosh Toir could be broadened and applied in many cases. It doesn't have to be exactly a tip. It doesn't have to be coming in perfectly in, like we said, diamond box. It doesn't have to be that way. That's because you have 2. The moment you have 4, even though the Lamaila Lamata, the top and the bottom, Rosh Toir is Bifnei Atzmam, okay. And the 2 sides coming in, if there would only be the 2 sides, it would be okay. But now that you have 2, the one on the top and the one on the right, or the one on the right and the one on the bottom, or the one on the bottom and the one on the left, they are too near each other for you to allow the heter of Rosh Toir. And as you can see in diagram E, here you would need to have the tefach and a half, and you don't have a tefach and a half when you come towards the center. You have a tefach and a half all the way in the beginning, but you don't have it in the center. By Rosh Toir, we never demanded a tefach and a half. That's because we only spoke about 2 plantations. The more plantations, the more it appears mixed. It's all about, ultimately, there is a maras ayin aspect that you have to address. So therefore, diagram E, when you go from 2 to 4, you cannot do diagram E. This is Gavaldik. Because once you have 4, we have to have the tefach and a half, even L'Shita Sarambam. So now it's beautiful.
I'm sorry, just quick question.
Yes.
When we learned the Shita of the Rambam yesterday, in the beginning of this year, where there was, like a big diamond square in the middle, and there was 4 corners.
Yes.
Right? Why was that okay?
Very good, Danny. I spent time in this. Take a look. Take a look on page 24A1 in the art scroll. I'm happy you're saying it. I know what Danny is talking about because I went through this when I learned this yesterday. Look inside diagram E. Kevin, if you can put up diagram E and you can leave diagram F, that will be amazing. I want to show the contrast. No. If you can make a contrast between the diagram E of this daf and diagram E of daf Chav Daled Amud Aleph, that would be great. And for people who have the sefer, Danny is saying, hold on. Actually, we learned, and as we'll see, that L'Rambam Perhaps even Latanakama, you can pack in 6 in a 6x6, and the 6 will be, you have to look inside diagram E, on Daf Chavdal Dom Aleph, people are using the art scroll on page 24A1. But I want you to appreciate, David, that here, look at the points that are touching. How many groups are being united in the Rosh Torah, Danny? In any single one? Only 2. Only 2. I know that there are 6 packed in. And I know that every single, let's say, I want to call them a diamond. Every diamond is connected to more than one, Danny. I know that. But it's connected in one spot.
No.
No, that is the wrong one.
Kevin, I just posted on the chat.
Rav Mendel, you see what I'm saying? Masha'enken and diagram E of what we're learning today, here, if you were to allow going from 2 to 4, the way we are putting in diagram E of today, you're having 4 coming together, not 2 coming together. That's the difference. Very good, Kevin. Go down a little bit, diagram E. No, I know that in diagram E, we packed in 6. Here we're only speaking about 4. So Danny is asking her, if you can allow 6, you can't allow 4. The answer is no. You cannot. Diagram E, before the one that Kevin is showing now, even though we only see the bottom of it, which is fine, that's because at the points, only 2 are touching. Here today, if you were to allow it at one point, 4 are, so what? That's the point. Marasayin, it looks farmish. And therefore, okay, that's enough of that. It didn't come up. It did come up. Let's come back to what we're learning right now. So even Rambam in Lishitas Rabbi Shmuel Bar Sesartov, what you have to come to diagram F, or in the Pnei Moshe. That's a good picture in the Pnei Moshe. The difference between the Pnei Moshe and the art scroll is that the Pnei Moshe has a circle in the middle, and the art scroll has a box in the middle. And I appreciate a lot what the art scroll did. I think he did something about it, because l'chura, even Rambam, I know, Danny, that the box in the middle is touching 4 corners. Look at diagram F and look at the Pnei Moshe. I understand what the Pnei Moshe did, and I understand what the art school did. The Pnei Moshe, because of what we're saying right now, that we don't want one thing to be touching more than one. What he did was that even Rambam, no, not that one. I don't know where you're going, Kevin. The Pnei Moshe middle. You see, he made the middle even a circle, and even the middle circle, that's the art scroll. So the circle of the Pnei Moshe has to have 1.5 to all of the 4 sides. The art scroll is saying that Rambam, the way he understood the Rambam, but I understand the logic, think the picture up the way it is, that will be allowed. And I want you to appreciate that this, to me, and don't forget, the 2 by 2.2 in middle, you're packing in was the type, you're packing in. But you see, at any given point, it only connects to 1. Danny, the box, I know it's connected to 4, but not in the same place. The top middle of the box is connected to the one on the top. You understand? The right middle is touched to the one to the right. The middle to the left. The bottom middle is to the bottom. That is allowed. He holds the art school Yechap good. That Lenambam, this will be allowed. Like you said, Danny, just like we learned, we just saw the picture over there from what we learned 2 days ago, that here it's also allowed. Even though every box, I want to show you the box and the 2 middle boxes and the diagram that Kevin is showing, the middle 2 boxes are touching 1, 2, 3. Doesn't matter, it's touching 3. But it's in different places. So you can have even today 4 places, not in the same spot. They don't unite at the same spot. Beautiful. Okay. You see that?
So the way to understand it is that our issue is if the multiple boxes touch in one spot.
And even just to make it clear, even the Rambam will hold that you don't allow diagram E of today. Okay. So whoever went into the details with the pictures or not, don't be intimidated. Answer number 1. Let's go. Simple. Mishnah says, you have a 6x6, David. How many can you pack in there? 5. Why 5? And really, we are explaining the kasha. We already showed that, you know how many you can pack in there? We showed in the Mishnah a picture, you can pack in 9. L'kula alma. And you can have 1.5. The answer is no. That Zaydu El. Now, Zaydu El doesn't really fully address it. Because really, you can argue that the logic that allows you to do diagram A or diagram B can allow you 9. So I take back what I just said. What's the source of 5? Zeruel. Then Zeruel means seeds. What seeds? 2. How do you go from 2 to 5? If you can put 2, why can you put 2? Because you have a tefach and a half. So you can put 4 by leaving a tefach and a half. If you do that, you can have a 5th. Either the Rambam diagram F that he's showing, or without Lerash, that we don't allow Rosh Start, we have the diagram C. So that's answer number 1. Let's move on. Answer number 2. Before we go to answer number 2, I take that back.
Diagram F is 5? No, it's 4. That's 5.
Okay. It says the Gemara, says the Amar Rabbi Yoino. Now, there are different ways of learning this Gemara. We mentioned this. I just want to repeat one more time. There's a big machlokes rishonim whether the space that's needed between vegetables are 3 or 1.5. The logic of both is from the same nakuda. There is something about a vegetable nourishing itself from a tefach and a half of ground all around it, in either direction, from all directions. Now, one can either say if one vegetable needs a tefach and a half to be yoinik, and the other needs a tefach and a half. If I don't even want for the areas to overlap, you have to put a distance of 3 tefachim. But that's not what we're learning over here. We are learning over here that all you need is a tefach and a half. So Muzman Zagin says Rabbi Yoina, the way we're learning Rabbi Yoina, that you know what the problem is? The problem is, David, I don't care if the earth that's nourishing A, if that earth is nourishing B. I don't care if there's an overlap on the ground. The only thing that I do not allow is for the vegetable itself to be within a tefach and a half of the other, because then it's going to be yoinik, not only from the earth, but from the vegetable itself. I, B'chal, don't care about yonika, emes. But since people know this fact, so when they look at something and they see it within a tefach and a half, and their knowledge that it's actually drawing nourishment from each other gives it the appearance of mingling, of colliding. Now, Amar Rabbi Yoina, avoida is allowed to be pregeya b'avoida, which is why I don't need 3 tvachim. The only thing that I do care about is ve'emin pregeya b'chaveda l'chayshoi. That is what we don't allow. We don't allow one vegetable to close in on the other vegetable itself. But having one tefach and a half between 2 vegetables, even though both of them are drawing nourishment from the same patch of ground, that doesn't present a problem here for Kilei Zeroyim. Azoi, we're learning the words of Rabbi Yoina, and let's move on. Now, Guy, comes answer number 2. It's so good. Answer number 2 is that don't tell me that Zeiru Eha, which we are translating as seeds, explicitly only allows for 2. If that's the case, then you can't go from the logic. And maybe I'll use my words. Maybe you can put a 9. Maybe that's really the underlying problem. If you're using logic, so you leave a tefach and a half and put a 9. We are saying 5. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi holds that the word Zeiru Eha itself is explicitly telling you 5. You tell me how you do that. So if people, this is a simply amount of learning a lot of kamos. We came across such limudim a lot, not that often, but throughout the many years. And that is whenever a word could be written one way, and it's written with more letters, even though they have the same translation of it, they have the same taich, we learn from that. But often, this is, how. Now, I know there are different girsa'os. So number 1 is, the Torah could have written seed. Why could the Zar'ah, what you're saying is really a bomb question that we'll speak out in a moment. But the Gemara is beginning with the word Zar'ah. Don't forget, the pasuk is trying to give a mashal. The pasuk is saying, you want to say, Ki ka'aretz toitzi tzimcha, ukeganad zeiru'el tatzmiach. It's a mashal. Kain Hashem Elokim is going to do wonders for the Jewish people. Okay, nice. Amen. But the Torah for the mashal could have written ukegana zar'a satzmiach. If the Torah would have written that, Zara would have meant 1. The Torah goes ahead and it writes, now look at the letters that we are adding. Zara's written Zayin Reish Ayin Hey. Even if you want to go from 1 to 2, what would suffice Zero'eha. What I added right now was a yud. What does the Torah write? Zeiru'eha, with a vav. So the way we learn this part of Torah Shabbat Peh is Zara means one. Keep the one.
Sorry, it's written with a yud?
It's written Zayin Reish Vav Ayin Yud Hey. So let me finish talking. Zara means one. Leave the one. One is allowed. Then Zero'eha is two. How much is 1 and 2, guys? 3. Zero'eha weiter means minimum 2. So the limud is 1, 2, and 2 equals 5. How great is that? Now there's a problem with that. You know what the problem with that is?
Here, that Zerueha also means that the difference between Zeraeha to Zerueha is before it's planted in the earth. Versus Zerueha, it's after the fact.
What Yakir just did is he undermined the whole limud. If you're going with that approach, if you're going with this approach, then there is no limud. This is a unique type of Torah Shabbat Peh. You have to have a certain type of Ruach HaKodesh for this. In other words, you just explained why the Torah needed to write the word Zeru'eha. The premise of this limud is that really Hashem could have written Zara. For the purpose of this verse, Zara would have sufficed. We're trying to write the minimum possible. And even if God wanted to go, instead of writing in the singular to the plural, for that, it could have written Zeru'eha. God did write Zeru'eha. In other words, don't look at the different meaning of the words. We're actually looking that they all mean the same thing in the context of the mashal that Hashem wants to give. That just like Ka'aretz Toitzit Simcha, just like Kegana Zeru'el Tasmiach, Kain Hashem Elokim Yatzmiach Tzedako Sihila, for that, Zara would have been perfectly okay. And if God wants to add, he could have written Zeru'eha. When he writes Zeru'eha, so every time he added something extra, we're using that as a number. Zara would have meant 1. Zeru'eha, which is not even written, would have meant 2. And we're leaving the 1, we're leaving the 2. 1 and 2 is 3. Zeru'eha is not 2. That's 5. Now, the point is that if God would have wanted to write 1, why begin with the word Zara, Zayin Reish Ayin Hey? Begin with the word Zara, Zayin Reish Hey. And if you do that, then you have another 1, because Zara is 1. Zara means 1. And the Gemara says that's exactly the machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim. Uche Rabbi Yehuda. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, he also who holds you can have 6 in a patch of 6 by 6. He gets it from the same pasuk, and he does the same type of limud. But how does he get the 6? Because Rabbi Yehuda Mashisha. Yeah, because the Torah could have written Zara. Zara's 1. And if God wanted to hint to 2, he would have written Zara, which also means 1. But then you would have had 2, because he could have written Zayin Reish Hey. You're writing Zayin Reish Ayin Hey. 1 and 1 is 2. That's 2. Zeru'eha, which is 2, is another 2. It's written Zeru'eha, 2 and 2 and 2 was to 6. And now, as the Rash Cirilio, beautiful, at the last line here of the Amid, he says more, and I'll tell you why the Chachamim argue. The Nira, the Rabbanan, I'm turning now to Daf Chafem based only in the Rash Cirilio, Mahadri Leila Rabbi Yehuda, that even in the minimum, you have to write with a hey. Why? Because the Zara mi boya Leila Michtav, Kamadach Siv, Samcha. Because to be consistent, the pasuk is later in the pasuk. Ki ka'aretz toitzit simcha. Simcha is the beginning. Uchegano, he writes that grammatically it had to write Zara with a hey. So there's almost a machlokes and digduk. In other words, since there is no option to write Zara, lechachamim, you can't make a limud from it. I want to just point out, Yakir, to what you're saying, that if the content of the present or the future, if that would have been important, then you knocked off, then there's no limud. Just like the Chachamim argue with Rabbi Yehuda. The whole thing is based on that they were saying, oh, we could have written this, could have written that. For the point of this pasuk in Yeshayahu, it would have been good enough like that. So when God adds extra words, you keep the old. It's called the old is sublated in the new. These are very deep ideas. The old is sublated in the new. Whoever doesn't know sublated, you'll find out one day. Sublated, you can Google it. Sublated means that in the new there's the old. You don't lose the old.
I think we get 9 then at some point.
No, there's no 9. And by the way, this already answers that. This already answers. No, it's if the pasuk is being somehow, this is called nach explicit, telling you 5, so you cannot do more than 5. That answers the question. According to the first answer, Rabbi Shmuel Bar says Sarta, why not 9? Torah says 2. Logic can lead you to 9. According to him, no, it's dafka. And now the third. Now we're turning to the Chafem base. Now the Gemara gives a third answer. Rab Chagai. Now there's the initial understanding of Rab Chagai, and then there's the conclusion of Rab Chagai. And let's go into the classic Kriying Siv. The Havamina is, guys, that Zeiru Eha, look at the Gemara, the way we have our Girsa. Even though we kept on insisting that Zeiru Eha is written with Avav, here we have the word written without Avav. Zayin Reish Ayin, a Yud and a Hey. How many letters do you have? 5 letters. 5 letters. So Rab Chagai Yomar, here's the Chaim, that the Chachamim, you know how they make the Cheshbon, not what Hashem could have written and what he wrote. No, count the letters. How many letters you have in the word Zeiru Eha if it's written based on the premise that it's written without Avav? 5 letters. So Zeiru Eha Chamisha. That's his understanding. That's his understanding of Chachamim. And the Mara Fulda says that before we go on and we amend this, before we amend it, what would be Shitas Rabbi Yehuda? Not that Rabbi Yehuda is arguing in the Ksiv. We'll get to that in a moment, which is a big problem. We try to avoid that there's a machlokes how to write any word in Scripture. No, that Kriying Ksiv, since it's pronounced Zeiru Eha Mitavav, so look inside the top Mara Fulda, that really, Rab Chagai Yom again, we read it the same. Zeiru Eha Chamisha, hey, Yesh B'Teva. Harei Chamisha L'Rabbanan. Because the Darshi Rabbanan HaKsiv, it means the Ksiv versus the Kri. And I'm reading inside the Mara Fulda, second line, by Veri, which is Rabbi Yehuda Sfira Light. No, the Korinan, since the Kri, the pronunciation is Zeiru Eha, Mitavav, after the Reish, before the Ayin, the way you pronounce it, there are 6 letters. Ulafia Kri Areishish. But that right away, the Gemara says, and it says Rab Chagai back in the Gemara that Kol Han Da'ano Mashkach Leivav Ano Machak Lei. He went into different shuls, and whenever the guys today, I mean, we have printed Sfarim. Then everything was written in scrolls. So he would open up Megillas. He would go to the pasuk in Yeshayahu, and he would find some of them had the word Zeiru Eha written with Avav, Zayin Reish Vav, Ayin Yud Hey. He would erase the Vav. Yes. Why? Because Rab Chagai, he had this tradition that what is the machlokes Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda? Kri Ksiv. The Ksiv is only 5 letters. So he now had as a mifzah. He went mifzayim. He went and he corrected everyone's safe.
Is it only Torah that we know every single letter?
Tanakh. No, but this is Nach. This is scripture.
No, I know that. I'm saying Torah, we know every single letter is exact.
I keep on saying, I'll say it again. Tanakh. Torah? No. Tanakh. Ezra counted the letters of Tanakh. The Gemara in Kedushin tells you the middle letter of everything.
Which one's right?
That's a problem to have a machlokes. So here, Rab Chagai was avoiding a machlokes, like you just said. The whole machlokes is Kri Ksiv. Says the Gemara, you Rab Chagai, I am sorry to bring you the news. There's actually a machlokes Tanoim how to spell this word. Says the Gemara that ish to ilas. This is the biggest haggadah that you get in Yerushalmi. Rav Huna Safra the Sidra. We asked Rav Huna Safra because he was the one that in his mayach, in his physical mind, he knew the whole Tanakh b'diuk. All right. We have today the Aleppo crown. That's probably the oldest Sefer Torah that we learned about this in the Rambam. The Rambam used that when he wrote the parts of the Yad HaChazaka that he needed to write. That's the oldest that we have.
Codex. Codex.
The Codex, yeah. But we call it, say it. Yeah, and you can Google that, and it's got a whole mice about that and how we're finding new pages to it, mamish in our generation, which is amazing. So he says, we asked Rav Huna, who was the sofer of the whole Seder. David Seder means Tanakh, and V'aman, and he says, no, Zeiru Eho Malya. He stopped Rab Chagai's thing. Zeiru Eho is written mitavav. So hold on, if Zeiru is written Tavav, so it's not Rabbi Yehuda goes after the Kri. Rabbi Yehuda goes after the Ksiv. So what about the Chachamim? So look inside the Marafulda. We're in the third line inside. This is Rab Chagai. Here you see Markoi. Until after Rab Chagai did all of this good work, at some point he himself asked Rav Huna, because probably every shul that he did it in, they kicked him out. He said, I'm doing you a favor. He says, no. So he himself asked Rav Huna Seifer, Shubaki b'chasid v'yatid, v'amali, and when he says, who, Mali b'vav, then came Rab Chagai standing his ground. Al karchach, by pligi, Musman Zagin, funny. That Rabbi Yehuda Savage is Mali. And it comes out that everyone should paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, because you have Rav Huna held, Rav Huna is an Amayra, it has to be with Tavav. But the Rabbanan, Sfir Olahem, the Rabbanan is plural, they ain't a Mali. He's insisting in his word. The Chagai knows that how did we get 5? Because the Chachamim had a tradition that it's only 5 letters. So for Oisen HaChased and Bav, go like Rabbanan and like Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Now, why I'm not going to go down this path, why he said that. Let's go back. Okay. And now, like we mentioned, we have a new machlekes that will begin between Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yechanan. Guys, I love this. What can I tell you? I can spend the next 50 years with this. Oh. The Mishnah spoke about 5 in a patch of 6. What happens? The Mishnah then spoke about David 6 by 6 with the border. Forget about the border. The border allowed you, since the border had a tefach height, let's go with that. So the border, if anything, forget about the Rambam. Even according to the Rash, the border only necessitates now a half a tefach away, because the border already has a tefach height, half a tefach height. Forget about the border. What happens if you have a patch of 6 by 6? And I know let's go back. I understand how it got here. Without these answers, the last 2 answers tells you it has to be 5. It cannot be more. It cannot be more. Okay. I'm making a soup. I need echveis. I need more. I need 6. I need 7. So what am I going to do? Logically, I'm going to go and say, okay, I can't plant in the 6 by 6, which is the average, the norm, the standard size. I can only put on 5. If I want to put in another one, I'll put it right outside of it. Could I add right outside of it? You would say, why not? We'll get it. We'll see in a moment why not. So says the Gemara that Rabbi Yechanan, in the name of Rabbi Yanai, holds that what Kulan b'toich shisha, that the Mishnah is only allowing 5 because the Mishnah is only speaking about inside the patch. But if you want to go outside the patch, David, if I want to add outside the patch, of course, in a way, L'Rambam, Rosh Toid Heter, L'Rash, 1.5 tefach. You can add more right away around it. The restriction of the verse is only inside. That's Rabbi Yechanan. He's lenient. However, Kahana, B'Shem, Rav Shimon Lakish says no, that even Kulan doesn't mean only. Of course, you can only have 5 in the 6 by 6. But even if you're going outside, immediately outside the 6, you also are bound only to 5 species. Now the question will be, why? Why are you Reish Lakish are limiting the number 5 to even outside the patch? If you are adding 1 more tefach all the way around the patch, so it became a patch of 8 by 8, why would you not be allowed to have 9? My friends, look inside the picture. Kevan, where are you? How do you get 9? Let's go, L'Rash, and we're going to learn L'Rash. I'm learning L'Rash. Don't forget another thing that we learned in the Mishnah, that once you're not using the whole 6 by 6, if you remember that, guys, L'Rash, to the Rishain, the Rash, and Mishnayos. If you're only using 5 by 5 or less, how many species can you plant? Only 1. We already had that in the Mishnah. If you forgot, go back to the Mishnah. If you're planting immediately outside the 6 by 6, look inside, not the picture, okay, but the picture in the art school. Much better because you see the tfachim. If you're planting and there's no border, so first of all, the middle will have to be distance from the outside periphery of the 6 by 6 by a tefach and a half. So the middle can only be 1. Doesn't matter. But if you go to all the way around and you leave a tefach and a half, I don't want that picture. I don't want that picture. I don't know where you're getting that picture from. Why are you skipping?
Which footnote?
We are on page 25, B2, the top left picture. I don't know what Kevin, I don't know where he went to with it. Okay. Okay, Kevin put that picture just to show the Rabbi Yechanan, the way we understand it right now. Kevin, I don't mind you put it back up. But Rabbi Yechanan is saying that even if you're using the area outside the 6 by 6, you can only have 5. But the question is why? What would be his logic? So first of all, the logic, just to make it like this, if you are planting immediately outside the 6 by 6, so the center, which will have to be distanced from the periphery by a tefach and a half, will already demand for the center to be only one species. And this will be Bein Rabbi Yechanan and Bein Reish Lakish. So how did he get to Vayter 5? If you put the outer outside the 6 by 6 in the format of the picture that we just had up, so you can see there are 4 around and there's 1 in the middle. But the Gemara's kasha is, I'm sorry, that is what Reish Lakish is saying. The Rabbi Yechanan, you can put a 9, and why would Reish Lakish argue that's the Gemara's kasha and that's the new picture over here? You can leave the 1.5 separation. You're speaking about a person that's not looking for quantity of vegetables. They're looking for as many varieties as possible. I'm going to leave the middle only one species because the middle is not taking up the whole 6 by 6. Why not? Because I need a tefach and a half from the periphery, from the outer of the 6 by 6. But why are you putting only 1 in each corner? 4 corners, 4 and 1 in the middle. Like you can look at this. If you're going clockwise from the top left all the way around, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 around and 1 in the middle. Why would he not allow it? Answers the Gemara that you didn't understand Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish, who says that the 5 isn't only to the middle. Even if you go outside, you know what he was referring to? Look inside diagram A. Kevin, go put diagram A, not diagram B. Diagram is so good because of the specificity of the picture that whoever wrote this, Hashem bless. It's Gavaldik. When you look at the picture, it's our picture is 1,000 words. Is our Mishnah speaking about Is our Mishnah speaking about an isolated patch? Actually, now let's go in the Gemara Bavli, Shabbos, Daf Pehei, Amud Aleph, and Amud Beis. When they quote our topic, our sugya, there's a machlekes between Rav and Shmuel. Rav holds that when our Mishnah said of it, that you can plant 5 species inside a 6 by 6, it's only because the Mishnah is speaking about one isolated patch, period. Rav says it. If you have many different patches, again, what's the issue? Marasayim. If everyone is packed up with 5, and you go helicopter over it, you see one big taroides. Shmuel is lenient. Shmuel says that our Mishnah, who allows to put 5 species in a patch of 6 by 6, isn't only speaking about by an isolated patch, it's even speaking about a patch among other patches. So Rav and Rabbi Yechanan are a shidduch. Since Rav, David, our Mishnah is only speaking about an isolated patch, you're right that in an isolated patch, the last picture that Kevin showed over here, and where you have 9, will be allowed, for sure. And by the way, even a shlukish will allow it. That's what the Gemara is saying. Even a shlukish will allow the picture that we have in 25b2, where you have 9. Why not? You addressed. Rambam, it's even easier, but we're not going to go there. There's not enough time. You addressed the Rashi is concerned. You have a 1.5 tefach everywhere. But since Reish Lakish learned the Mishnah like Shmuel, our Mishnah isn't only speaking about an isolated patch, Masu Kedvash, it's speaking about also a patch amongst patches. Look inside diagram A. And the proximity of one patch to the other is such, the proximity is such, that if you were to pack the area around the 6 by 6, the way we had it in the picture that we showed above, then one patch to the other patch would not have the 1.5 tefach. The only way you can have the 1.5 tefach, no matter not only within each patch, not only if you're measuring one surrounding to the other surrounding, but if you're looking at one patches with its surroundings vis-a-vis the other ones, the only way you can have and pack them all in is that if you only use them 4 around in an inconsistent way, as you see in the diagram. In other words, on the top left, you have more space used. In the top middle, less space used.
It's like alternating.
And don't forget, in the middle, you can only have one species. That's going to take up 3 by 3 because you're using less than the 6. So that's why he said even you are bound to the 5 even outside. And that's what let's read it inside. Tamchaim from Batzra Boitzura says, good gesagt. Reish Lakish will allow you to put 9, but he would not allow it in the Mishnah because Reish Lakish didn't learn like Rab. Reish Lakish learns like Shmuel. That since Ba'aruga Shebaruga Simas Nis, our Mishnah is also allowing for you to put 5 in the 6 by 6, even if the patch is among other patches. And now we have a new problem. That patch to the right is too close to patch to the left if you are putting outside. If you're not putting anything outside of it, if you're only planting it inside the 6 by 6, then b'chlal there's no problem. Because every patch has the required 1.5 tefach or maybe even more. But if you're also going to start using the immediate surrounding area from the patch, now you got a problem with the neighboring patch. So Reish Lakish says, no problem. Everyone only has 5, meaning 1 in the middle and on 4 on the sides. And if the 4 on the sides are not same, but they're not like each other, they're dislike each other, and you alternate it, as you see in the picture, then that will be allowed. Mazel tov. To be continued.
Rabbi.
Yes.
If Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, they can't be talking about different cases, right?
They're speaking about the Mishnah. And again, since Rav says that our Mishnah is only speaking about isolated patch, Rav holds, Danny, that if you have the format of diagram A, forget about planting outside of it. Even if you're planting all the 5 inside of it, you're not allowed to do it. It's too much in a small area.
Who holds that?
Rav.
Okay.
In other words, once you say that our Mishnah is not speaking about a patch amongst patches, our Mishnah is only speaking about an isolated pack. That's why, which is the way Rav learns, which is the way Rabbi Yochanan learned. So Rabbi Yochanan says, you know when you're limited to 5, only if you're putting it inside of it. If you're putting it outside of it, you can go more. How much more? We know now 9.